So now quickly, we want to move to talking about so sometimes you might want to arrange more than, you might want to put more than one widget on your screen, and there are different ways to do that. Two of those ways are with row and column, which you probably already used column for the last task. Sorry, it was my bad. I should have actually told you guys before you guys did it, but yeah, there was nothing I could do. So yeah, but we're still going to talk about it right now briefly. So yeah. Let me remove this decoration. Just gonna. Okay. So now, so yeah, back to people that have used say CSS grid or flexbox with CSS, then it's probably you might be familiar with some of the concepts about rows and columns. But even if not, yeah, it is still not that difficult to understand. It's just kind of like the same thing we talked about, padding and margin. Yeah, it is kind of easy. So yeah, sometimes really, if there wasn't a way to arrange multiple widgets, then Flutter would actually suck, because it is a lot of times you can't do without using plenty widgets in like a list or in one single view, if that makes sense. So we're just going to go ahead and start that out. So I'm going to change this child from this container to a row. Well, starting with rows first. So yeah, so a row, which is the first one we're talking about, is for you to arrange stuff horizontally, that's like in a straight line. So that's what the row widget is for, and the column widget is to arrange stuff vertically, that's from top to bottom. So now for rows, this might be your first time of encountering rows and maybe columns, but in widgets like this, where you are permitted to use more than one widget as a child, you don't use child, because child is singular. Then you now use children. So you say children, and then it is a list. Yeah, so it's a list. This is, you probably already know what lists are if you've done the intro to that videos. But yeah, so you make a list, and like most times or all the time, though it's not compulsory, but it is, you see it a lot, or in fact you should always do this. You specify the type of stuff that's going to be in that list, the type of value you're going to put inside the list. In this case, it is a list of widgets, so that's what I'm going to put here. And why is it a list of widgets? Because we're going to be putting multiple like widgets inside this list, so that I can show. 1 sec. So now I can add many widgets inside the row. So I'm going to start with a, say, a text. And then inside this text widget, I'm going to print say text one. I need to start there right now. Then I'm going to say put another text. Just I'm going to say, oh no, let me say second text. And now you see, okay, because it is so you can see text one and second text, though there is no spacing between these two widgets right now. You can see it is kind of like jumbled up. And maybe I should actually start this because I don't like the way it's looking. Yeah, probably just maybe increase the font size a bit. Yeah, so it is bigger now. Yeah, so now you have this two text widgets on the same line, and that's multiple widgets already. So as I said, it is not really, the spacing is not really, doesn't really make sense right now, but you can now use the container padding that we talked about. So yes, I just used one of the perks that the extension gives you to wrap this with a container, because I don't want to like type it out. So if I give this, oh no, not a padding, a margin actually, right? Yeah. I give this a margin, and then I do edge insert the only, right? Not sure what we're doing here. Yeah, so you can see after giving it a margin to the right of 20, you can see that the text kind of like moves a bit more. So that is more usage of your margin. But you can also use other widgets instead. Like you can use a sized box widget. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but a size box is kind of like a container, but you specify a size, you give it a height and a width. But most times you actually can't style it like the way you style your containers. So it's most times you just use it to put space between things, or just use it to put something inside something. So let's say width, and we give this 20. Yeah, you can see the spacing increases a bit more. So now I can actually remove the margin, and it gives it the 20. So Sizebox is one of the widgets that I personally use like a lot, because I don't really like using margin that much, because when you have like so many containers with so many margins, it might get a bit confusing to your eyes sometimes. But if you have size box, you can easily pinpoint where they are. Yeah. So, and your widgets inside these widgets can also have children, can also have a child, or you can still wrap it in another row and give that children. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind with Flutter, in case you didn't know, is that you can nest as many widgets as possible. You can nest as many widgets as possible at a go. So yeah. And the kind of widgets that you can put inside this row is, you can put as many type of widgets as you might need. You might use images, um, flower button, and what, like a whole lot of stuff. You can put like so many type of widgets inside here. Even your custom widgets, you can put them inside here. So yeah, because I know that a lot of people actually already have ideas on how to use this widget. I'm not going to like talk like so much about it. But although one thing I should probably talk about um, is the edge in. Oh no, true. What's it called? 1 sec. So yeah, your main axis. You have main axis alignment, and you have main axis alignment of center and space around, space between, space evenly, and starts. So yeah, we're going to do, I'm going to use center first. So you can see now when I say main axis alignment or center, it's any widget that you add is going to start adding it from the center of the row, if that makes sense. So it kind of spreads towards the left and the right. So if I add just one more text to this, so let me give this third text. Yeah, so you see it keeps putting it into the center. Yeah, so that's center. But so something I didn't mention is that main axis alignment dot start is like the default one. So whenever I create a row or even a column, usually main axis and cross axis is usually just the start. And start is, let me save this back. So start is like from the left to the right. That's start. End is from the right to the left. So if I change this to end, yeah, you can see now it creates any widget that you add, it adds it towards the right and then brings it to the left, if that makes sense. So we've seen center, we've seen start, we've seen end. Others are space around. Space around kind of like tries to space all the widgets evenly. Yeah, no, not evenly. Try to put space like in both the left and the right of each of the um, widgets, not necessarily evenly. Then we've got space between. Space between is only going to put space in between one widget and the other inside the row. So it is not going to give it's not going to give like, so wait, let me just show you. So you can see text one here is still towards the start of the screen, because And if you remember when we used space around, it was actually pushed a bit more inwards, but now it is retaining its normal position, and that's because when you use space between, it is only going to give space between this widget and this widget, and then this widget and this widget, but it's not going to give this one any space. Yeah, so that's that. Then we've also got space, yeah, space evenly. And then space evenly is the one that tries to give each widget like the same amount of space. Yeah, I'm going to give them the same amount of space. Yeah, so those are the different properties you can use to give like your rows alignment along the what along the main axis, which I said is the horizontal axis. That's horizontal. You probably already know what that means. So yeah, so another type of alignment is the cross-axis alignment, and I said that is like your like vertically. So for this, we have different properties also. We have um, baseline, center, end, start, stretch. So so what stretch does is it kind of tries to give um, the whatever widget is inside this row is going to make it is going to make the size, that's the height, to stretch along the available space for that row. So if I okay, chill. Let me see a way to make this more visible to you guys. If I make this container and something makes sense. Yeah, so you can see that it kind of like stretches from top to bottom. It stretches down this widget from top to bottom. But yeah, most times you probably won't really have a cost to use the stretch property. Like I don't think I've used it also that much. But another cool one is center. But in our case, center doesn't really do anything because like already it was already centered. Then now we're going to try start. So now you see when we do cross alignment of start, it takes it to like the top, and that's like the start of the vertical axis of this widget. But then if you do the end and then you save that, you can see that it's does kind of like the opposite. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of makes sense for rows right now. We can move to columns real quick. Okay, guys. So now we're talking about columns, and yeah, I already said that columns are kind of like the opposites to rows. So rows help you arrange widgets horizontally, but then columns help you arrange widgets vertically from top to bottom. So yeah. Oh man, I think I should have just used. So I just used column, wrapped it instead of. We're going to change this to column. Yeah. So now I'm going to maybe change these widgets a bit so that the visual representation, so that like you can see it, you can see stuff better. I am going to just make it just containers for now. Then change the colors. Yeah, so right now all the widgets are right now all the widgets are bundled up, but you remember for rows we used what happened is- for rows we used size box with and we gave it a width, so that kind of gave it as a gift. That kind of made us have some spacing between them. So now, because I'm working with columns, I'm going to change those to heights real quick. Yeah, so now you can see the spacing between the containers. Right. So we're not going to talk too much about it. It is basically the same thing with rows, just that this time you have it um like in opposite direction instead of horizontally, you have this vertically. Yeah. So if you keep putting them, you are going to get the same result. But then what I'm pretty much should be talking about is the alignment. Like the same alignments that we used for rows. Yeah, so now you see this. Now don't forget, in our case, it is starting from the center, because this was in the center. But most times when you create your column, most times your course axis alignment is going to start from start. The default is usually course axis alignment or start. Though it doesn't show you, but yeah, that's where it starts from. So that's where we're also going to start from. So now the course axis is wait, hold on. So in colon, your course axis is kind of the opposite of the course axis for your row. So remember, for your row, the course axis was when you are trying to get the axis of something of a row vertically. But here it is kind of inverted, and now it is the horizontal axis, so to say. So if I change this to center, just to show you, because it makes more sense. So you can see it moves from here to, they move from here to here. And if I do end, it moves this way. So it's kind of moving them horizontally and not vertically, like we saw in rows. So since course axis alignment is opposite what was in row, you probably know how main axis alignment is also going to be. I'm gonna give this start at first, then I change this to end. Yeah, so you can see the main axis alignment. I'm putting it down, putting it here, if that makes sense. So basically, what course axis alignment and main axis alignment mean? Main axis is along the main axis of that widget. And remember that in columns, we are arranging our widgets vertically. So because we're arranging them vertically, the main axis is this way, from top to bottom. And the cross axis is like the inverted version of the main axis. So that is why it is horizontally. But then row, our main axis is vertically because horizontally, because by default the way we arrange stuff in rows is um, this way, sideways, vertically. So that's what makes the main axis vertical. So the main axis is basically the direction in which that widget is going to arrange, the direction by which that widget is going to arrange its children. So that's basically what main axis is. So when you know the main axis, the cross axis is like the opposite of that direction, if that makes sense. So yeah, guys, that is for rows and columns. I might actually not be able to continue this tonight, but yeah, we are moving on to states, setting states, and playing with your states. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing next. Yeah, so that's that for tonight, guys. Peace.